Okay, it's time to get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining our live lecture today. My name is Isaac, and I'll be the lead instructor for the lecture. And today's topic is going to be career skills. So let's go ahead and let's start. So first thing we should talk about is your career planning. So in the tech industry, it's very similar to like when you first get out of high school. A lot of times you don't know what you're going to do because you really haven't gotten any experience yet. However, um, it's good to still think about these things, okay? Because at the end of the day, you're going to end up probably specializing in a specific field of software, okay? So most of the time, you know, developers specialize. They don't just, generally do everything. Okay, so that being said, if you don't know what you want to do right now, you can use a technique called SWOT to help you figure that out. So SWOT is an acronym which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's go ahead and go over each of those. So examples of strengths would be if you're maybe someone creative, someone motivating, energetic, or dedicated, right? Those are all great things, and they add value outside of your technical skills. But maybe weaknesses would be impatient, outspoken, unrealistic, confrontational, okay? Maybe you shouldn't be in a customer facing role, right? There's just different characteristics of your weaknesses that apply to different jobs. Okay, so then you got to know what your opportunities are. Okay, so right now there's just tons of opportunities for software development, but that might not always be the case for, say, a specific field of development. Let's talk about like web design, for example. A lot of businesses these days use these simple drag and drop programs to build their web design interface, right? And so one would think that you maybe shouldn't get into web design for a long-term goal because it looks like it's probably going to be harder to get into that the more time goes on. Okay, so you got to look at just because positions are out there, how many positions, right? Is it something where you're going to be able to get in the door, or you're going to have to fight really hard to do it? Okay, and then threats is another thing. So things like criminal history. If maybe you have aspirations to go work at the FBI and write software for them, more than likely you're going to have a pretty squeaky clean record, right? So you got to identify if maybe based on your criminal history, if that's the right career path for you or not. Finances, and they're one. So some jobs will absolutely not take you unless you have a computer science degree. It doesn't matter how great you are as a software engineer. If you don't have a computer science bachelor's degree, they will turn you away. Okay, so maybe you want to work at said company. And if that's the case, you got to look at your finances and say, can I afford to go to school and also, pursue this career? And, everyone's different in that regard. Okay, so as you can see, SWOT just kind of balances the factors in your life with, the current industry opportunities and gives you kind of a rough idea of what you would be more eligible for. Okay, moving on, let's talk about soft skills. Okay, so most people who become programmers, it's not their first job. Okay, it's very rare anyway. Sometimes people get lucky like that, but most people are getting into software after they've had a couple jobs at least. Okay, so from these previous jobs and experiences, you can gain soft skills. Okay, and soft skills are your non-technical skills that still add value to your workplace. Okay, so if you're maybe a team player, right? That's a really great skill to have. Not everyone's a team player, especially in software. You get a lot of recluses out there, right? Like to work on their own. So having that interpersonal skill really adds value. Organizational skills. Maybe you worked at an office before you went and worked at your first programming job, and maybe you're already organized with how to schedule your time and process your said paperwork or whatever else is needed. And then also leadership skills. This is a big one. A lot of people have had management experience at previous jobs before, and a lot of times that can carry over, and you can offer your leadership expertise along with software to the table. Okay. And again, communication skills. Some people are better at communicating with others than other people. So that being said, if maybe you're really great at the way you articulate your words, and you can send emails that everyone responds to, right? Maybe that's a really good communication skill that it's going to add value to the company you're working at. Okay, so just try to identify the skills and make sure that you're making them obvious, so that your employer or potential employer will see them and not just see the technical side of you. Okay. So next, let's talk about the tech resume. Okay, so there are 3 C's of building a resume. Okay, it needs to be excuse me, it needs to be clean. So that means easy to read, proofread, not cluttered. And really, there's no excuse in 2017 why your documents should be misspelled or things to that nature, because there's just so many free programs now. You definitely have to do your part and make sure that you clean up your document. Okay, so next, it needs to be concise. Okay, so all content needs to be relevant to the job. And when you describe previous experiences, right, you're using action verbs like developing. So relevance is important. You don't want to say I worked at Aunt Sally's in the summer of '03, right? It should be tech related for the most part. Convincing is another one. Okay, so you want to showcase your skills, right? But you don't want to fluff up any words or vocabulary, right? You want to stick with your everyday regular jargon, because that stuff is really easy to spot out. You using words like exuberant or fabulous, right? It makes you seem like you're trying to compensate for your coding skills. A lot of times that's how it's interpreted anyway. So just be yourself in that regard. Be professional, but yourself. All right, so next, let's go ahead. Let's talk about that top half of the resume. Okay, so statistically speaking, you only get around 7 to 10 seconds for your resume to be read. And typically that means the first half is read, if anything. Okay, so we know that for a fact, so we need to use that to our advantage, and we need to place the most important items at the top. Okay, and those items are your GitHub and LinkedIn profile, your tech skills, and your project examples. Okay, everything else is just nice and extra below that. So let's go ahead and take a look at a bad example of resume and then a good example. So on this bad example, we can see that first thing, we got a big ugly blue graphic to the side here, right? It's very distracting. So again, keep the graphics out, keep it simple, guys. No clutter. Next, they included the GitHub, but they forgot LinkedIn. Okay, and the reason this is bad is because GitHub is great if it's a technical recruiter, right? And technical recruiter is someone who knows how to code, so they can go look at your GitHub and they can usually get a good idea of who you are as a coder from just looking at your source code and some projects on there. However, I'm here to tell you the majority of recruiters are not technical. Okay, so that being said, you got to make sure you include your LinkedIn as well, because your LinkedIn is a way for a recruiter to evaluate who you are as a professional by looking at things like your previous experience and your endorsements and things to that nature. Okay, so very crucial to include both of them. Next, they listed their skills here, right? Which that's not bad. That's one of the things that we mentioned you're supposed to list. So nothing wrong there. But we look next and we see that it's education before projects. And if you remember, the top 3 things we need to include are our GitHub, LinkedIn profiles, our skills, and our projects. Okay. While education is important and you should include it, it needs to go below projects. And the reason is this. Different types of institutions teach different things in regards to software. Okay. I mean, you might have one educational institution like MIT, right, where it's very, very prestigious and it's known for its tech and everything like that. Whereas maybe there is a community college that someone got their education from, and it's still really good, but it's hard to evaluate on paper how much the person can do from that education versus a project tells them in a nutshell what you can do. Okay, because I could have gone to school for 10 years but never actually coded. So for them, it's much more, there's a lot more peace of mind if they can actually go and look at a project you built or projects, right? And to go play with the links, play with the website, whatever. And it just adds so much reassurance. And then right under that, we could definitely include education, but these definitely would need to be swapped in a real job search, okay? So going down, we can notice another fatal flaw here is it's more than one page, okay? This is very bad, guys. You're not applying for the White House. We need to keep it short and simple, okay? Because most of the time, the second half doesn't even get read. So just don't even, attempt to make it more than one page. All right, so that being said, let's take a look at a good resume. Okay, so first thing we see up here is we've got LinkedIn and GitHub profiles, right? Perfect. Okay, so that's exactly what we need for technical or non-technical recruiter hiring managers. Okay, then first thing we have our tech skills. Okay, another perfect. We want that right at the top as well. Okay, and then we have projects. Okay, and you see how projects comes before education. And again, that's because they're probably going to stop here anyway. So last thing is no ugly graphics, and it is only one page. Very digestible and very good chance of getting an interview from this. Okay. Moving forward, let's talk about things to never include on your resume, okay? So we already talked about don't have misspelled words or grammar, period. That's a deal breaker. It'll be thrown in the trash every time. Next, don't include personal info like social security number, right? Although if they're doing maybe a background check or, you're actually like signing up for payroll, right? They're going to ask you for that information. But I mean, when it comes to like just your general job search, you definitely don't want to put that on there, especially because a lot of resumes are paper or they're email. And those two things have been known to get lost and fall into the wrong hands. Okay, so you just don't want to expose your own personal identity for risk of, all the ugly things that can accommodate that. Next, don't include jokes, okay? Sense of humor is good to have, in the office, right? When you've got the job, when you're working with the boss, right? But it's like when you're first applying, right? And you want to just show them your professional side, right? Just stick with, professional, especially because you don't have that much space to put on your resume. So this is really a time or not a time waster, a space waster. Okay, next, let's not include irrelevant job experience. Kate, again, we talked about this. Aunt Sally's at the summer of 03. No, we don't need that. Nothing is better than putting that. Next, don't include meaningless words you don't use. Again, fluffing up, trying to compensate for your coding abilities, right? Be yourself. Next, reasons for leaving previous positions. Okay, so this is something that's pretty common for like job applications, right? Sometimes they'll ask you, why'd you leave your previous position? But the resume is in your control, right? And although you might have left a previous position for a totally legal and totally sane reason, some employers might interpret the reason you left as maybe greedy or a number of other things, right? And, a lot can be lost in translation in that regard. So to avoid that prejudgment, so to speak, don't offer up those reasons why you left previous positions unless they ask you. So don't just blatantly put them on your resume, unless, of course, Yeah, don't put them on your resume, but of course, if they ask, you can always, answer their question then. All right, moving forward. Hobbies. This is like jokes. Again, you can tell all the team about your hobbies when you get hired. But before that, keep it professional. They again, no space wasters. You have not that much landscape on that resume, so utilize it well. Salary requirements is another thing. Okay. This is one of the last things that should ever be brought up. And normally you're going to wait for the potential employer to bring this up. Okay. Normally they'll ask your salary requirements when they're interested in you, right? Or they're evaluating whether they have enough budget to bring you on. But that's a question you should let them ask. Okay. And you shouldn't blatantly put that on your resume. That is very distasteful. Okay, so next, references. Although this is another thing that they may ask for, don't include it on your resume without, because it's considered another space waster. Okay, so you can put a single liner saying excellent references, available upon request, right? If that makes you feel better, you can definitely do that. But don't put, 5, 6 lines of references and addresses and numbers, that's going to definitely eat up your space. And last, unprofessional contact information. Okay, so some people got their email back, in 10, 15 years ago and never looked back, right? And maybe at that time they weren't, the most mature person, and their email has some inappropriate context to it, right? So that being said, make sure you have professional contact information only on your resume. All right. So enough about resumes. Now let's talk about going out there and getting a job. And how you do that is networking. So in the tech industry, surprisingly enough, in-person networking is the most effective way to get a job. Okay. And in fact, there's a hidden market, which is 80% of the jobs that are not posted online. Okay. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people would think it's the tech industry, they're going to post everything online, right? Well, that's not true, actually. 80% of these jobs are filled by in-house references and people meeting company owners or hiring managers at a coding workshop, right? I mean, this is how the majority of hiring is done, weirdly enough, but statistically proven. So to make sure you can get in on this hidden market, you need to go out and network yourself. And physically is the key word here. Because a lot of coders, we get so used to being in front of our computer, we just want to video call everyone and we never want to leave where we're sitting, right? But especially when you first get into this industry, you have to go put yourself out there. People need to see your face. People need to shake your hand. And you need to make it known that you are looking for work and find out who's hiring. Okay, and so how you can find networking meetups in your area is well, there's a number of different ways, but we recommend looking at either meetup.com or eventbrite.com. Okay, and these are just some of the more popular, proven platforms for distributed meetups in different parts of the world, actually, all over. Okay, so just go there, search for programming. Maybe you're a C#, maybe you're Ruby, maybe you're JavaScript, right? And then you just say, I'm in Boston, or I'm in Houston, or I'm in New York, right? And then it just gives you a bunch of meetups in those areas, and I'd say 99% of them are free. And a lot of times you just go and you learn about coding, and you also get to do social hour where you have drinks and snacks, and it's also fun as well as it is about getting a job. It's not this terrible thing you have to drag yourself to. It's actually enjoyable on the other parts of just the job search. So definitely make it a point to find meetups and go to them on a regular basis. And that is the best and fastest way you're going to land a job in this industry. Okay, so now let's talk about finding the right fit. So before you go and you just, start shotgunning job applications to any and everyone who will take you, you got to do a little bit of research, okay? And this is important for a couple different reasons. One is during the interview, you don't want to sound clueless about the company, right? Like, I'm only here for the paycheck, but I could care less about what your mission is. That's a terrible candidate, right? No one wants to hire that person, okay? So do a little bit of research. Make sure you know something about the company, other than the fact that, they're looking for workers. And also, their culture might not line up with yours. Okay, everyone's different. Some people like laid back culture where they can go and sit on bean bags and drink beer. But other people really like maybe wearing more of a formal, business professional setting, right? Where people dress a little more the part, where you're talking to customers and clients, right? So this is the important part about knowing what you're walking into. Is you don't want to get hired and a week in hate where you work because you didn't know that they did office yoga every half an hour and you hate yoga, right? So just, again, things to take into consideration while you're doing that job search is a little bit of Googling before the application submitted can go a long way. All righty. So now let's talk about the online job search, okay? We already talked about the hidden market, the in-person networking, huge. 80% of the jobs are right there. However, we don't want to ignore the other 20%, okay? Because those are totally valid jobs as well. The only thing about them is they're a little harder to get, right? Because they're public, so everyone can apply for them. And of course, when you're competing with 100 different developers or software engineers, your chances definitely are a little slimmer of getting noticed, okay? So that being said, you still need to utilize the tools out there and the job forms available. And so while there are just tons of them you can use, we recommend some of the bigger ones, that are a little more reputable. Okay, so you probably heard of like Indeed and Monster.com, and Dice is actually a really good one for tech. And surprisingly, Craigslist is really good for smaller companies and startups, local dev shops. They tend to want to hire really quickly, and so they just throw a post on Craigslist to just try to find someone local to be able to fill a position or whatever else it might be. So definitely do your due diligence, look through these boards, positions that match, submit your applications, and we'll you go from there. Okay, so next, let's revisit the contact information. Okay, so as well as professional contact information on our resume when you're submitting your job application, anything to that nature, your business card, you need to have professional information on there as well. Okay, so not only does your email need to be appropriate, okay, so we see here, good example, bad example, but also your voicemail needs to be appropriate as well. Okay, so it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life, but at least during your job search, make sure that it's short and to the point, because these hiring managers, these recruiters, they're calling a lot of people, and for them, it's like last thing they want is a long-winded 45-second to a minute voicemail, or even worse, someone who's like left a drunk voicemail, right? Those kind of things are really job killers in that regard. So make sure your voicemail matches that professional demeanor that you're trying to give off. All right, now let's go to the topic of LinkedIn. Okay, so you have all probably heard of LinkedIn by now, but if you haven't, it is the world's largest networking platform for business professionals. Okay, so you definitely need a LinkedIn account if you're going to succeed in this industry. So if you don't have one, go sign up today, because you're going to have to do it before you leave camp. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at a good LinkedIn profile, see what that looks like. Okay, so let's just start here. First, you might notice this gentleman is smiling. Okay, it's the first thing you notice. And that is super important. You guys always want to smile, because no one wants to work with a grump, right? And although you might not be a grump, if you're not smiling in your pictures, that's really what a lot of people assume. Okay, so give them the benefit of the doubt, and just smile or put a picture up there that has a smile in it. And also do one that is relatively recent, right? You don't want to do one from 10, 15 years ago. It's taken with a Polaroid camera, right? Something to that nature. It needs to be decent in quality, okay? Next, your headline, right? Again, short and to the point. Just tell people what you're excited about and what you want to do. Summaries, a little blurb about you, okay? Just say, I'm doing this currently right now, and I like doing these things, and this is me in a nutshell. Okay, and the experience is very similar to a resume, right? You just list the places and the dates and the links, all that good stuff. Okay, and then organizations are always good because if you part of organizations, you tend to be more organized, right? And those people work better on teams. So having organizations you're a part of definitely is a great thing. Education, of course, you want to put that on there. Let them know that you are certified in the experience you have and the knowledge you have. Volunteer experience. This is very good. It shows you're selfless. So you're willing to work for something other than just money. You believe in a bigger picture. Skills and expertise. One of my favorite sections, right? Because not only can you list what you can do well, but other individuals and connections on LinkedIn can actually endorse you for these skills. Okay, and the more you endorse, the more it adds, reputation to the fact that you can actually perform the skill, right? Because there's a lot of developers that they can say they can do something, but they actually can't. They just did a blog once, and then they never did, worked with that tech again. So recruiters are very weary about what people say they can do, and so the more endorsements they see you have for more skills, the more easy it's for them to believe that you could actually perform that skill. So include lots and lots of skills endorsements. Honors and awards, again, this is things that you're proud of and accomplishments that you've made. Definitely, post those. Courses, right? Again, we're solidifying our education. And then projects, and they're one of my favorite parts because you can show off what you've done, right? They can see who you collaborated with on the project. They can click on the link and actually redirect to the website itself. And it adds that much more reassurance, that you can actually perform the job. And last, we have recommendations. Okay, so recommendations are similar to endorsements in the way that you have individuals vouch for you, basically. And then, the more professional they are, the more reassurance it gives the recruiter that, you are the right pick. Okay, so moving right along, let's go ahead and let's talk about GitHub. Okay, so by now you should have a GitHub profile, and so let's take a look at a good GitHub profile. Okay, so you might notice, first thing, just like LinkedIn, we have a nice smiling person. Okay, very important. That's pictures worth 1,000 words. Isn't that what they say? Okay, so make sure you're smiling in your pictures. Okay, as well, you might notice that she has a large amount of contributions. Okay, so although they weaned off later here, that's not such a big deal because the fact that she has a lot in the previous just shows that she's an active coder and that she actually does what she says. Okay, and you can see 64 repositories. I could go through here and I could easily get a good idea of just what this person can do by reviewing their repositories. Okay, so the example of a good GitHub profile. Next, let's go into the subject of online branding. Okay, so a lot of us are used to posting anything and everything on our social networks. Okay, however, you got to be aware that some employers will look in those places. And even though that might not seem fair, it is the way it is. Okay, so you can fight it or you can accept it. But either way, let's go ahead and talk about the do's and don'ts of online branding. Okay, so do not post pictures of yourself drinking last night, for example, especially if it's every night, every day. Those kind of things are going to give them a bad impression of you. And yes, even though it's not fair they're looking there, again, if you want the job, you've got to make some adjustments, and plain and simple. Okay, so while maybe you don't want to do that, things such as like a high number of profile followers, that's not a bad thing to have, right? That's actually good. It shows you're influential, and most people are influential, have leadership qualities, right? So make sure if you do have online branding, it's good branding, and that you don't shoot yourself in the foot by posting things that cost you the job. All right, next let's talk about an elevator pitch. So every interview, or most every interview, usually starts off with the question, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, right? And a lot of people react by just puking out information, just the first thing that comes to their mind. And some people pull it off, but most people just sound nervous and unprepared. Okay, so you don't fall into that group of unprepared, nervous people. And what you can do is you can prepare an elevator pitch. Okay, and an elevator pitch is a technique you can use to answer the prompt, tell me about yourself. So here's the rules. The elevator pitch needs to be 30 to 60 seconds. It needs to tell them what you do well. It needs to tell them what you want to do. It needs to tell them why. Okay, and if you sum all these things up, it will give them a nice short snapshot, and you won't be too long-winded, and they're going to probably just move on to the next question. Okay, but again, if you don't prepare anything, more than likely you will answer this question in a way that makes you look not confident. Okay, so there's a price for not practicing. So make sure you practice your elevator pitch so you don't have to experience that. Alrighty. Next, let's talk about the technical interview. Da-na-na. A lot of people are scared when they hear about technical interviews, right? You hear about Google asking you to tell you how many golf balls fit in a minivan, or just crazy things like that. And then other people have to do complex algorithms and sort through collections of data. It's just so random. And that's why I think the technical interview is very scary for a lot of people, is there's no one way to prepare for it. And so we get very scared when we're faced with these kind of situations. So what we recommend is just, of course, do your best, but also, use the tools out there to practice your technical skills, and not just hope that you'll be able to pull it off. So a couple we recommend. First is CoderByte. Okay, CoderByte is great because you can just go on there and take daily challenges that keep you sharp, and they also increase from easy, medium, hard, right? So you see your skills getting better and sharper, and you're not just like wondering if I just studying to study, right? You actually see progress. So CoderByte's very good. CodeFights are great for thinking on your feet, right? Because what they do is they place you against other developers, and you got to build something, and depending on who does better, you win or lose. Okay, and this just kind of gets you in the mood of coding while other people are watching, right? Well, it's kind of a high pressure environment, because a lot of us know how to code well, but as soon as we get in the interview, we go blank because we get nervous, right? And so to prepare for that, CodeFights is a great way to do that. And then finally, Interview Cake is one of the most tried and true methods for teaching people how to get through interviews, how to use specific techniques for remembering complex algorithms and things to that nature. Okay, so definitely check out Interview Cake as well. Alrighty, so finally, let's talk about the topic of follow-up. Okay, so just like in most other industries, it's good to follow up with hiring managers that you submit the application with, or that you've had an interview with. Okay, because keep in mind that these guys are not only looking for one client, or they're not only looking for one developer, they're looking for hundreds at a time, right? For many different clients, right? And so it's easy to forget people, right? Things get lost in the mix. And so it helps them to have someone remind, and give them calls. And that also shows initiative, and it shows that you want it, right? And sometimes that's all it takes is they have two applicants and they have equal tech skills, but applicant A called in 2-3 times following up on the resume, and applicant B didn't. So this person shows they care more. So they're probably going to get the job. So make sure you do your due diligence and follow up. Even if you think you blew the interview, right? Just follow up, right? They might be willing to train you. You never know. You'll have to try it to find out. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and let's open up the floor for anyone who has any questions. Okay, so we are unmuted. If you have questions, you are free to ask them now. Nothing today? Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us. Have a great day, and happy hunting out there.